What's the biggest struggle you have when you buy something new? Let's say you bought a new PC or you bought a new Mac. You got a new phone. Maybe you got a new sound system or a brand new TV. What's the biggest challenge you have? It's knowing where to go to fine tune it or make it behave the way you want it to behave. Well, we have that same issue with our routers when we get them brand new. If we're not familiar with the operating system, if you're new to Cisco iOS, then that becomes a challenge. So we look at R1 here. What's R1 needed to do? Well, R1 is going to have to perform routing. It's going to have to take traffic on the 10.110/26 network and move it out to other portions of our network, maybe a data center, maybe to a wide area network, so it can go to a branch office, and even out to the internet. So with that in mind, where do you go to implement all those various features that you need to implement on R1 to make it work as you need it to for your organization? So that's a big, big challenge that new folks to the Cisco iOS have. It's becoming accustomed to where you go to accomplish the tasks you need to accomplish. So right now we've connected to the console port and it says press return to get started. So that's really the enter key. There's no return keys on our typical keyboards. So I'm going to hit a couple times here and you'll see that I have the prompt that appears. And this is the user exec mode that we are in. Now, how do I know I'm in user exec mode? Because of the greater than sign that we see right after the host name. So whenever you see this greater than sign, it means you're in user exec mode. And the way I think about this mode is that the router is greater than I am. So the router is greater than I am. What that means is that there's very minimal things that I can do in user exec mode. Yeah, there's some show commands I can execute. I might be able to do a couple of other things. But if you really want to interact with the iOS and you really want to do configurations or verify various parameters using show commands, you will need to elevate your privileges. So what we're going to do here is we're going to type in enable. Now, enable all by itself without adding any other parameters is going to elevate your privileges to the highest level, which is privilege level 15. Privilege level 15. So now I'm in privileged exec mode, and that is what that pound symbol means, or the tic-tac-toe symbol, or the hash symbol means. So yeah, that symbol has many, many different names, folks. Call it what you want. It means the same thing on the iOS router. You are in privileged exec mode. Now you are greater than the router in this particular case. So in privileged exec mode, what are we typically going to do? Well, we can interact with the underlying directory structure. Yeah, just like all other PCs or phones or electrical equipment that we have, most of them come with some underlying directory structure. Well, the same thing's true with our routers. So you could interact with the underlying directory structure if you have to. We will execute show commands here to verify various parameters and settings and features that have been configured on our router. And we'll also have the ability here to issue our debug commands. So if I need to do some low-level debugging and look at real-time output as it's happening, we would do that in privileged exec mode as well. Now, we'll also move into other portions of the operating system here. So what I want you to realize is that this operating system is really a hierarchy. So what do I mean by a hierarchy? Well, we started in user exec mode. Now we're in privileged exec mode. Well, from there, we can start branching out through the hierarchy. So what if I wanted to configure parameters that would affect the router as a whole? For example, set its host name. Well, what I can do is I can go to global configuration mode to accomplish that. So how do we move into global configuration mode? How do we go deeper into the hierarchy? We'll type in configure terminal. So configure terminal moves us into global configuration mode, and I know I'm in global configuration mode because as we see here, it states config in parentheses. Now notice we still have our elevated privileges because we see our tic-tac-toe symbol there. So global configuration mode, the area of the operating system where you can configure parameters that would affect the router as a whole, or even issue commands that really didn't have a place to go on their own. So some commands you would issue here in global configuration mode, and you might scratch your head saying, well, Wouldn't it have been better to have it in its own mode or its own prompt? Yeah, it might be better, but in some cases, it is what it is. You're just going to have to accept the fact that some commands are done where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be done. So that's why it's important to grasp the concept of, where do I go to accomplish the tasks I need to accomplish? That is your number one priority when learning Cisco iOS. Now, what if we need to configure routing parameters? Well, then we can go into router, for example, EIGRP configuration mode. And we know we're in router configuration mode for routing protocols because we can see it says config-router. What if we wanted to back up in our hierarchy? So I want to move back to privilege exec mode. Well, I can type in exit and it takes me back one level. So now I'm back in global configuration mode. What if we wanted to configure an interface? So for example, interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0. Now I'm in interface configuration mode, and I know I'm in interface configuration mode because it says config-if. What if you want to now configure, for example, your VTY lines, which are used for remote administration? So we can type in line VTY, and in this case, I have 0 through 4 as my VTY line, so 5 total VTY lines by default. Now it says config line. So understanding the prompts, understanding where to go to accomplish your goals is of utmost importance within our Cisco iOS. So right now I'm in the hierarchy. Where do we go? How deep are we? Well, we started out in user exec mode. Then we went to privilege exec mode, then global configuration mode. Now I'm in line configuration mode. Let's say I wanted to go all the way back to privilege exec mode. How do I do that? We can type in end. So remember, exit only takes you back one level in the hierarchy, but end will take you all the way back to privilege exec mode, no matter where you are. Now, there's also a key combination we can use. So let's dive in again into that hierarchy. What if I use the key combination of Control-Z, Control-Z, or Control-Z, depending on where you are in the world? So I'm going to do that right now. I'm holding down the Control key, and now I'm going to press Z. And there we go. We're back to privileged exec mode. So mess around with the operating system. Don't be afraid to explore it and completely understand where you will go to accomplish the various tasks you need to complete.